some interesting developments in the middleweight division. Demetrius Andrade has relinquished his WBO middleweight title, and as a result, Zhanibek Alimkhanuly has been elevated to full champion status. He is now a middleweight champion. Yeah, very interesting development, as I say. I think it's fair to say that Demetrius Andrade has ducked his mandatory challenger in Zhanibek. And look, we can talk about the reasons why. Do I think that Andrade is scared of Zhanibek? No, I doubt it. However, I do think that Andrade understands that Zhanibek poses a real risk. I haven't actually spoken about Zhanibek on this channel, but to give you my assessment of him, I think he's a real force and potential danger man at middleweight. He has got good amateur pedigree, and the skills and the polish that come with it. Does seem to have quite a bit of power, and he's very confident in his ability. He has, I think it's fair to say, his most high profile fights and opponents thus far have been Rob Brandt and Hassan Ndam. And yeah, not stellar opposition by any stretch, but these guys have been around, they're experienced, and Zhanibek dealt with them with relative ease. Most recently, he took out Danny Dignam. Yeah, a bit of a mismatch, but he did what he was supposed to do. He made it look easy. I don't even think Dignam landed a punch on Zhanibek. And Zhanibek just completely deconstructed him. So Zhanibek is very much in the position that Andrade was in for a long time, when that's the who needs him club. The fighters who are very high risk and very low reward. But you'd expect that Andrade, a key theme in his career is that he's struggled to get a high profile and meaningful fight and a worthy dance partner. And he had a very willing mandatory challenger in Zhanibek, who was chomping at the bit to get in the ring with Andrade and fight for a title. And Andrade has actually moved up to 168 pounds. He's made exodus from middleweight and seems lined up still to fight Zach Parker. And now I get it. I imagine that there's more money fighting Zach Parker in Parker's hometown. I believe that's supposed to be a stadium fight or a small stadium fight. I imagine that makes more money for Andrade than honouring his mandatory challenger in Zhanibek. However, we have to call it how it is. It's a duck as far as I'm concerned. Andrade didn't want to take the high risk, low reward fight in Zhanibek, and instead went for a potentially easier fight, which almost guaranteed offers more money. I assume, that's my assumption, because Zhanibek, yeah, he's a good fighter. He seems to have the potential to take the reins at middleweight, but he doesn't have much of a following. He's still relatively unknown, I want to say, outside of the hardcore, and even a lot of the hardcore fans, they haven't seen much of him. But yeah, it's an interesting development nevertheless. I hope, because I like Zhanibek, I like watching him, I like his style, and I think he has some real talent there. I'm hoping that this title that he's now been gifted, let's be real, he's been gifted it, even though he was mandatory challenger. Hopefully that this acts as an incentive to get some potential opponents in the ring, because now he actually has something to offer in the form of a title. And I think it's interesting even more so because the middleweight and super middleweight division seem to be going through a bit of a transition right now. I think it's fair to say that Golovkin is still kind of seen as the top dog at middleweight. Yeah, he's looked a bit more vulnerable, but he is getting his titles back. He's once again unified champion, IBF and WBA. Got the IBO too, but we don't count that, But he's, of course, moving up to have the trilogy fight with Canelo and fight for the undisputed titles. This is going to be his first crack at fully unified titles and undisputed, which was always Golovkin's goal, just down at middleweight. But I have to imagine that if Golovkin wins, he'd probably want to hold on to his undisputed titles at super middleweight and maybe defend them a couple of times. If he loses, I think at this point, a loss for Golovkin would mean that he retires. So that kind of, at least in my head, I see Golovkin probably being gone from the middleweight division for good. And that leaves a space. And incidentally, his countryman Zhanibek, they're both from Kazakhstan, I think he has the potential and the ability to become that top dog at middleweight. And of course, he'd have to have fights with his contemporaries, the other guys at middleweight like Jamal Charlo and so on. He's actually, I believe, recently called out Charlo, so that's interesting. But yeah, hopefully we can see Zhanibek tested and in some more meaningful fights as a champion now. Demetrius Andrade, on the other hand, I hope that at middleweight, I wish him all the best. I hope he can get some meaningful fights and some entertaining, tough fights. But we have to call it how it is, and he does seem to have ducked his mandatory Alimkhanuly. Let me know what you think of this situation in the comment section below. Do you, like me, believe that this is a duck on behalf of Andrade? And what's your assessment of Zhanibek if you've seen him fight? Leave it down in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening and I'll catch you in the next video.